Welcome everybody, and thank you for taking the time today to join us on our webinar hosted by the DALIM Users Organization, or DUO for short. My name is Graham Blanks and I'm the Director of Business Operations for DALIM Software here in North America, and I will be the moderator on today's webinar. So today is the continuation in our second series of webinars around the topic of marketing operations, do more with less. With recent events changing many of our lives, we must all adapt to what is now the new normal, and for some of us, that will be a big adjustment. We have put together a great panel of seasoned industry professionals with many years of experience in the area of marketing operations. They will share some of their insights, their thoughts around today's subject, and then we'll enter into a Q&A session. Before I introduce everybody, just a reminder for everybody attending, in the webinar control panel, to your right, you'll see a questions box. If you have any questions for any of the panelists, please enter them there, and then we will wait until everybody has presented and we will go through those questions one by one. So let me first introduce our first speaker, Carol Verley, the CEO of DALIM Software. He will give us a very brief message from the deck, and then we will go to Laura Schulte, a transformation and innovation strategist. She's based in Munich, Germany, and then we will switch to Jim Kay, who is the product owner and sysadmin for DAM and workflow at the Bernard Group, just outside Minneapolis. So without further ado, I'm going to now make Carol the presenter. And over to you, Carol.
Thank you very much, Graham, for this introduction. We're very happy to be with you today, and even more happy actually to have these two experts that are going to speak right after me. So we could have taken you to New Orleans, but that would have been boring, especially in the lockdown times. So and because we could not have an event in Europe, as you can see a few pictures here from the two events we had in Lisbon and then in Nashville last year, we figured we have so much content, let's go on air. And Do On Air is therefore now it's 6 episodes. It started in Chicago already 2 months ago. And meanwhile, we've been to multiple cities on the European continent, but also on the American continent. And today is no different. We're going to go very quickly through a comic strip that was actually the subject of our last webinar, that is still accessible online if you have not seen it. And we are leaving the French Alps and also the city of Stuttgart, which is basically our Detroit for the European car industry, to Munich, which is also a big automotive hub with Audi and BMW being not very far. But today we're not going to talk about cars. Laura is going to accompany us and tell us what she learned in those digital first startups that she has been actively working for over the past years. Following which, we'll go to the lakes of Minnesota. You know, we'd like to take you on a tour, at least virtually if you can't do it, you know, physically, then this is more the essence of our duo meetings. And from those lakes area, we go to Chanhassen, a city in Minnesota where we seem to actually gain a client every second year or so over the past 5 years, and where we have the pleasure to today count within us Jim. Jim Kay is actually based at smartpress.com, which is part of the Bernard Group, and he will tell us actually how the life looks like at SmartPress, working from his home office. And but he was still nice enough to provide us with a picture of his own workplace from a social distance, as you will actually see, since this is the case most around the world. But since you know that we're not going on air like everybody else, we're also going on air with a webinar to print initiative. That very version of the magazine, if you are actually attending from American soil, should reach your mailbox this very week, latest early next week. It actually is our magazine for the one of you that know it, and it features lots of the stories that we would have liked to tell you live in a duo session, but that we had to move online for obvious reasons. We can't wait to actually tell you more, so we ask you to stay tuned, enjoy the show, and register to the next episode, if not done already. And from then onward, I hand over to you, Laura.
Hi, everyone. Let's see. So,
Sorry, Laura, I'm just going to switch to you now.
Okay.
Make you the presenter. And over to Munich.
There we go. I think everyone should be seeing a screen, and Graham, you can let me know if that's coming across properly.
Yep, see your screen, looks good.
Fantastic. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you, Carol, for having me here today, and DALIM for sponsoring this event. I'll be talking to you about the 6 best kept secrets to do more with less in marketing operations. And I'd like to come to that topic from what we can learn from digital first startups. And I'll tell you in just a moment why. I think right now in this work from home world, we're all trying to address so many changes, and it's causing some innovation needs absolutely everywhere. I think Carol's introduction about where Duo was supposed to be and then shifting it to this online setting is a terrific example of innovation happening right in front of us. I think it's something that a lot of companies are trying to do, and I see DALIM coming out with this well and quickly right from the start. And I think this format is here for a long time. It will be around for years, not just over in a few months, but kind of developing a new channel for us. So, oops. There we go. So a little bit about myself. Carol gave you somewhat of an introduction. I am an innovation strategist, and I help companies that have new ideas, new businesses, new services, bring those services to market. Often with an innovation, it means it's a different market, it's a different process, it's a different customer. And one of the areas where I have background in this is in the work I did for Windeln.de, which is a German startup. And I worked in a division of the company that ran a flash sales site, so a platform e-commerce business, and it grew exponentially 3 years in a row with massive amounts of volume and images. And it was the systems we put in place that made it possible for us to get to market faster than our competition. And that's where I really started to see the value of these amazing systems behind digital assets. Before that, e-commerce wasn't considered something where pictures were that necessary. That was in print, but we found we had massive volumes. So now I work with a lot of different companies, many of them startups, and we're going to borrow a bit from them because I see the situation is really very similar. In this post-corona world, we have new markets, and we have at the same time a tremendous amount of change coming in from where we work. This work from home situation means not only is our business changing, not only is our distribution channels changing, but all of our processes internally for our companies are also changing. And so when we have all of that change, that's coming right at a time when we are trying to do things faster, to be agile and get to market with a tremendous amount of speed. So that's a big problem. And this is something that we see specifically in marketing operations. When we look at these 4 different areas of marketing operations, we have one that's technology, data, and analytics. We'll look at that in greater detail in the second part of the webinar. We have process engineering and optimization. Well, optimization is great when we know what we're doing. We have project management and training, but right now we're in this 4th area, and this is change management. This is really looking at all of the different things that are changing because of the business in this situation. So change management broken out includes things like customer insights, innovation and creativity, alignment with areas like sales, business development, operations, and strategy, because all of that's changing right now too. We need to measure our success and have accountability. What about collaboration? That's much more difficult in a work from home setting. We have communication, what's going on internally and externally with all of our stakeholders who are also now in this much wider range of locations. And then we have what's going on with the field of competition. We see that in marketing operations. And then strategy, brand, product differentiation, all of that is also combined into marketing operations. When I look at these, several of these, they start to look very much like the basic elements of what I do with startups in their go-to-market strategy. In go-to-market strategy, I'm not sure if any of you have really worked with it, but this is something that's absolutely crucial for a startup because they're beginning. That's all they're about, is getting their value to market. With older companies, we have a lot of different processes and systems set up for that. So if we look at the startups, we can see that this is what they're focusing on. They're bringing together all of these elements of a new business for sales, marketing, distribution, pricing, brand development, competitive analysis, and customer insights. Sounds very similar to what we're doing in marketing operations in change management. So down here with all of these, we're going to borrow some of these systems that I know digital first companies have in place to make sure they can do this faster than the competition. It's all about getting the market first. So these days, we are kind of all in startup mode. Everyone is. So we're going to use these methods to reduce the friction and reduce the confusion, because that's going to give us the ability to speed up, right? So 6 of them I've promised you. The first one, clarify your goals. Clarify goals. For everything that's coming in to your department, in your teams, in your business, start to ask, why are we doing this? Your time is crucial. If you figure out why you're doing it, you can reduce so much of the friction right from the very start. So what are we trying to achieve? Let's ask these questions. They're simple questions, but they get everyone focused and aligned. What does it look like when it's finished? Another really great question. What about the deadlines? Why are they those deadlines? And then make all of these things transparent in resources. Got down here just a little cutout of what you can do with a file system. This one is, of course, from ES, but you can just put your goals in a file on the system so that they're always visible. Then moving on from there, we've got another really important one, which is define owners and actions. It's about accountability and measurement. We're doing so many new things. We need to know what's working, what was worth the effort, who's supposed to be doing what when. We can't just run into them in the hallway and ask. We're all distributed, and we've seen now that we've been doing this, how important it is to define this from the start. Here in this slide, I've got a few things here, just the documents that you can do on ES, and Jim will show us more about this further on, but you can name exactly who's supposed to be part of the approval process. You can have this in your project management. I've borrowed a screenshot from DALIM. There's simple systems too that run outside of this. That's I love Trello. Trello's basic template here talks about, they have pictures. Who's supposed to be doing what? It's really important. What's needed? Do you have all the pieces? Who are your stakeholders? Where are the dependencies? And can I keep all of this information available and transparent? In startups, it's always known. They have it a little easier because there aren't that many, it's not as complex to begin with, and so it's easier to know who's responsible for everything. As we get into larger companies or companies that have a longer history, then you get the little divisions of who's supposed to be doing what. When we're all spread out, we have to clarify that, because some of those things that we just intuitively knew in the office, those don't happen when we're spread out. So we have to define those. And then we have to communicate those. This one's always also very, very, very critical for startups. Maybe you've heard the term agile management. It comes out of software development, and it's about doing not big long-term projects, but shorter 2-week sprints, because you can move faster towards an end goal. So in a stand-up, a Scrum stand-up, this is a meeting that generally happens first thing in the morning. Usually it lasts about 15 minutes, and it's open, open to anyone in the company. So when I used to run my stand-up meetings, it was publicized that the stand-up for this particular project happened at a certain time of day, that same day, all the time, and whoever wanted to could drop in and see what was going on. Now, I know when I say that, some people who haven't worked with this kind of a system before think, oh my God, you know, we open it up to everyone, everyone shows up, what's going to happen? Well, when you communicate, then you have the chance to get the maybe uncomfortable, difficult, or extremely important questions very early. Of course, we can't do these kinds of stand-up meetings right now, but you can do them online. And a lot of the software that we've got available to us online, like GoToMeeting, like we're using here, can be used as a communication platform for a stand-up. Or you can keep the information in a file that's available for anyone when they want to just access it, because they're in a different time zone and not everyone can come to the same meeting. Any way you do it, have daily communication openly and often, so that the changes are known. It is absolutely critical for change management. And these digital platforms actually make it easier. And then here's the other one, a single source for collaboration. This is point number 4. This is something that startups generally have. They have a document sharing system right from the very beginning. Often they have a distributed team or a decentralized team from the start, with a programmer in one country and the marketing team in another country. Your investors will be somewhere else. And so all of this gets pulled into a central source for collaboration, also for mitigating risk that something goes missing. So when you have this collaboration in one place and you're all pulling the resources and the comments, and you're contributing all of this and collecting it all in one spot, it's like having a big room in an office where you can work on things. And if you keep it all in one place, of course you can see why we'd be reducing any of the we'd be reducing any of the confusion that comes from, oh, I thought you meant that one. Oh, you mean this one. You can tag things, use all of those systems to tag which one is most, is the current one, which one is the one we're working on, where are the questions. So you can have transparent dialogue, you can have one location for the feedback and the requests, and I would say look at using digital asset management to manage all of your assets. And again, we'll take a really, really exciting deep dive into how to manage your digital assets and what digital assets are these days in Jim's presentation next. And then this is one of the most important ones. Say no to email approvals. I don't mean don't approve things, but I mean don't do your approval chains on email. There are so many other ways to do this. You can use systems like Slack. You can use the Trello board has approvals on there. Of course, working with DALIM ES, you have approvals and trails and version control all right in front of you in your systems there. And when I look at this statistic, this is from a study I can reference in just a bit, but it's 92% of marketers who were polled in this one study say that the biggest reason for missed deadlines are due to approval delays. And you know, when I think about some of the things that happened in businesses where we didn't have coordinated and streamlined approvals, we got into some very difficult situations with liabilities for having the wrong version produced. And version control is also something that becomes very, very risky when you're working with email. So email approvals, no, there are better ways, and you've got one great one right in front of you, and I would say start small, get those things out of email, keep your document sizes down, your data amounts down, and get some control over these approvals. They're critical to speed. And then the sixth secret is automate everything you can. Not today, not all at once, but automate everything you can. As you're setting up processes, think about ways to automate them. And this is things like requests coming into you. What about brainstorming? How can you automate the way you prepare for a brainstorming session, or how you take away the learnings from a brainstorming session or the tasks from one? What about briefings? Briefings are something for any of you that work in agencies. Of course, we require a briefing from our customers, from our clients, because we need to know what they want. But do we require a similar kind of briefing for internal requests? Those briefings can be automated. You can have a standard format that you give people. And I know I can hear people saying, but what if they won't do it? I'll get to that in a moment. So meetings, you can automate the way you prepare for meetings. It's a little bit more difficult now because we have to plan them in advance and coordinate people coming in from different locations, maybe using different systems. And the notes from those meetings need to be found and kept and collected in one place. You can automate those steps. What about updates to everyone who's a stakeholder in your group? Distribution of materials that are complete, that need to be used. Jim will show us more about that. And of course, you can look first at automating your approvals so that you know it's coming to the next step without an action being taken to push to the next step. It's the moving from step to step to step that gains you speed, transitioning from one step to the next. And when you automate, at least start automating approvals, you can move things forward to the point where you'll get to market ahead of the competition. And these days, we need to get every bit of business out of the markets that are available to us now. So, and then of course, why now? We have this unusual situation. I'm going to try to look for the silver lining in it. We have this situation where we're being forced to work from home. And from what I can tell, a lot of companies will continue a work from home format for months, if not forever. So these decentralized teams, either in our own companies or with the companies we work with, they're here to stay. And right now, we can actually force in some of these processes due to necessity. And because of that, have better processes when we do start moving back to a location of working together in the same physical space. So it's time to put the tools and tricks in now. They'll help us going forward anyhow. So those are my 6 big tips. They're logical ones, and they need to be supported by good choices in technology. If you have any questions about those, because of course this is just a quick look at them, please let me know either through the questions here in the webinar, or you can contact me directly. If you'd like, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to send you a copy of Slides Today, just so you have the checklist of 6 things, and also an innovation acceleration checklist if you'd like one for the future. Okay.
Thank you, Laura, for those insights on best practices and obviously marrying the actual business process with technology to gain the sorts of speed to market and collaboration that we need. Just a reminder for everybody, the question panel, you should see it on your control panel towards the bottom. So if you have any questions for Laura, we'll be taking those at the end in the Q&A session. But now we will move to Jim Kay, who will talk more about practical implementation of technology to aid the business. And over to you, Jim.
Thank you very much, Graham. Share screen. So my name is James Kay. I'm with the Bernard Group and smartpress.com based in Chanhassen, Minnesota. Assuming everybody can see my screen, here's the obligatory photo of my backyard. I'm coming from Edina, Minnesota, just outside of Chanhassen. What's unique about this photo is there's not a foot of snow on the ground. It's kind of a rare occurrence here in Minnesota. So a little bit about me. I've been involved for a long time in visual communications, digital imaging, digital asset management, workflow automation, creative operations, and all things related to publishing, content, creative, print operations for various segments, advertising and marketing, cultural heritage, studio, DAM, print operations. And I started my career a long time ago in pre-press. And I'm sure we have a lot of pre-press and print people on today, and you all know how that's been evolving over the years. So I'm going to talk today a little bit about what digital asset management means for the Bernard Group and SmartPress. I've given the project, the DAM project at the Bernard Group and SmartPress, a name. We're calling it Core Media. I found that that the project needed to be associated with a brand name for internal stakeholders to grasp the concept. Core meaning central, and media obviously meaning media. So centralized media asset management. A little bit about where I work. We have two primary facilities, the Bernard Group and SmartPress. The Bernard Group is a full service retail services and products provider, and SmartPress is a public facing web to print based company. And the websites can describe the companies better than I can. First, we'll look at the Bernard Group's website real quick. Experience retail differently. Essentially, it kind of says it all. We're about transforming retail strategy into exceptional customer experiences, and we're full service: visual merchandising, displays, fabrication, large format print, fulfillment, warehousing, end-to-end service provider. Kind of a fun fact. We have the world's largest fleet of HP 12K digital presses. And we're obsessed with quality. And a little bit about smartpress.com. See if I can pull up that website. You know, our brand message says it all: create brilliant print. We're a premium online print service provider, kind of designed for creative professionals. And as you can see here, we feature a lot of photography of our customers' work, and I'll talk about that shortly. But just really quick, it's very easy to go to smartpress.com and place print orders very quickly. Just really quickly, say I wanted to order a saddle stitch booklet. I can just go to smartpress.com, view a list of products, and I can begin speccing out my saddle stitch book. Say I want to do a 32-page book. It's warning me that because of the page count, it's going to make paper stock choices for me. Let's make it 8.5, 11. Let's do quantity of 100. My stock selections are all kind of default here. These look pretty good, full color, bindery and packaging options. And I can just add to cart and upload assets. Quick turnaround, smartpress.com, shameless plug. So what am I going to talk about? We're going to talk about digital asset management as it relates to pre-media and pre-press operations for commercial print. And I just want to thank Laura for saying what is a crucially important public service message. Please say no to email-based approvals. We'll talk about that in a second. This deck is just kind of some sketches, some concepts about DAM as I have seen them. You know, the philosophy behind what I've been doing, the challenge is not the tool or the system, but the data, the management, and the process behind it. And what do I mean by that? I found that a DAM system project or a workflow automation project really is a data project first. Success occurs on top of data. I found success happens when data is standardized, centralized, and there's concrete principles on how to deal with your data. Data quality and governance. Secondly, it's a process project. Where are your processes? How many touch points do you have? Are we facing the scenario of automating bad processes? Thirdly, it's a change management project. We need stakeholders and management, and the entire organization needs to be behind it. And lastly, it's a technical project. Systems to hold that data and to deliver context. Now, what do I mean by data relative to print media? The data is our assets. And I've sort of sensed that throughout the industry over time, there's been this maybe philosophy that print and visual communications assets are just pictures that sort of take care of themselves. And I'm finding that that's really pretty far from the case. What is our data? Well, in a commercial print environment, our data generally comes from outside sources generated by at least 4 native applications that behave and act very differently and generate many different types of file formats. Generally, we receive at least 21 different file formats from our customers, and a lot of them overlap. Many of them are raster-based file formats. Many of them are vector-based. Some are both. Many are closed file formats, Adobe InDesign, IDML, InDesign packages. Many are open formats, Adobe Illustrator, which is essentially a PDF, PDF files, Photoshop. So we have a really wide mixture of source data from many, many different locations with all kinds of different standards applied to them. So at our retail facility, the Bernard Group, sort of our foundational data model really looks like this. We have source data from our customers consisting of essentially whatever they want to throw at us. Native InDesign files, Illustrator files, Photoshop, SVG for jobs that are cutting only, PDF fonts. And then, like many commercial print providers, we have to do pre-press and partial automation. We have to do this ETL process, which is essentially an extract, transform, and load. And we get a one-up master file that we can action on. And in our case, we generate then an imposition file, which is either a PDF or an imposition based on GMG Print Factory. And we also have the derivative assets for project managers to use. At smartpress.com, it's a little simpler. We're PDF based, so that takes a lot of the complexity of data management off of our plate. Our customers for SmartPress submit PDFs. That pre-press, or ETL as I'm starting to call it, is much lighter. And we get the one-up master. And at SmartPress, we're all PDF-driven imposition files. So this foundational data, I don't think is ever going to go away. We have source files. We have to transform them into a master. And then we have an imposition. What does that pre-press ETL function look like? Well, in order for that source data to become master actionable data, somebody, either a person or a system, has to go in and check these items. Your color space, your fonts, linked embedded objects, page boxes and geometry need to be addressed. Native objects need to often be repaired. Inks and separations need to be looked at. And lastly, how are you managing this stuff? So the data for digital asset management in a pre-media operations environment is different in that it's heavy, and there's lots of it. Here's some metrics I pulled from our DAM last night. To date, we've ingested over 1.9 million PDF files. 182,600 InDesign files have been ingested. Over 130,000 image or JPEG files. 98,724 Photoshop files ingested. 166,000 fonts, totaling 97 terabytes of asset data has gone through our DAM system. And this is not even everything. We still have the old analog asset management protocol where we dump stuff on a file server in folders. When I took these screenshots, we had 6,000 jobs in the server. And the problem with the old analog asset management routine is that you have 2 metadata fields. You have file name and folder name as the only metadata. And it's next to impossible to derive relevant context from this process. So what I'm finding is that DAM and its derivatives, production asset management, marketing, resource management, really could fall under a master data management project. Digital assets are not just pictures, they're data and should be managed accordingly. And you know, the definition of DAM over the years has really evolved. It means different things to different people. I'm finding that generally, when you say DAM, people just think repository of static images that seem to manage themselves, and maybe some metadata. But we're finding at the Bernard Group and SmartPress that we're really getting into PAM, production asset management, processes and systems and technology to manage the specific production needs of our data, and marketing resource management, which I'll go into. Just some of the asset lifecycle events that are repeatable and trackable. You've all seen these before. We have the delivery, the storage, the search, the transformation, which is important for a production asset management environment. We generally have to normalize PDFs. We have to make derivatives from our master data. And the approval processes. Now, I have mapped out many pre-media operations workflows into a flowchart, and they generally all look the same. You have what I refer to as a point-to-point distribution model. You're going from point A to point B to point C in your workflow process. And oftentimes, to a greater or less degree, you have to duplicate the data and the effort each time you pass to the next stage of your workflow. This is unscalable, it's unstable, and it can bring diminishing returns, which is greater risk. I know if you're like us, we're guilty of duplicating lots of data. We have some places in our processes where we make 6 copies of our assets and put them in 6 disparate locations. And really kind of what I'm driving the organization for is this concept of spoke hub distribution, where you have a master managed asset or master data. And once you have your master data, you can deliver unique context to whoever needs it easily. You know, and a little bit about why we chose DALIM ES. You know, I looked at lots of DAM systems, various sizes and various features, and you know, the decisions were, I didn't want a system that was singularly focused on the creative services side of the industry. That's important, but we needed a little more out of our system. We couldn't get involved in an extensive custom development project for a DAM. A lot of systems I looked at had no real innovation in a long time. Other systems had what I call a closed file system or a hash store. And still more systems I looked at really were best suited for lightweight or derivative assets. And ES was the system of record for us because it's an integrated DAM, workflow automation, and project management system. It's powerful, graphic arts aware feature sets, highly flexible, and I love the ES file system, non-destructive. You just point the system at a file system and you extract the metadata to deliver context. Also, the strategic partnership is very valuable. So if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about marketing rights management in ES and eTwist. We're using it. Remember, I showed you the pictures on our website of customer work. We have to get permission from our customers to use their assets in our marketing campaigns. So it gets into rights management. So we have a workflow built. We're ingesting PDFs and XML files from our MIS system into an ES input channel or a hot folder. I've got a rule assigned to it that contains an ES document workflow, which itself contains a twist workflow. This is our master ingestion workflow. I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but we're ingesting assets and their corresponding data file, the XML. We're doing a lot of filtering based on some different specifications of the heaviness of the assets and the type of products. We're normalizing these assets, getting that file size down before ingestion. We have rules-based normalization based on which facility it's being produced at. Large format PDFs get normalized one way and small format projects get normalized a different way. And then we're auto tagging with metadata. And then once ingested, we have a review, share, notify, and a move workflow, which I can talk a little bit about. So what does that look like? We built a solution in ES based on master data. And if I can remember my username and password, I can log in and show you. So because we're leveraging master data, we can deliver unique context quickly with some of ES's low-code architecture. So when I log in, the first place I'm shown is a dashboard, where in a second, I'm presented with some filters for our marketing team to use. And we can get a sense of what kinds of assets our customers are sending to us. And I can do date range searches like show me everything that has been ingested from May 1st to today. So far about a little over 2,000 assets. You know, I can filter that down even further, like show me all large format assets, you know, assets that were produced at our large format facility only. And you can kind of get a sense of what people are sending to us. Lots of signage, lots of Corona related things. And let's look at small format assets. So again, I'm using this is all driven by metadata to allow our marketing team to get a greater sense of some of the assets that are being sent. So we have a lot of different products being sent to us, 1,700 jobs from May 1st till today. I can also do specific product searches. At SmartPress, we're all product-based. So for example, if I wanted to get a sense of how many floor graphics people are sending to us, I can filter on floor graphics, 26. Or magnetic business cards is a popular product. Oh, not that many. And pocket folders. So you get the sense. We're using metadata to provide targeted search for relevant data based on our marketing efforts. And we can also search a little bit greater. I've added faceted search. Sometimes we don't get the amount of data we need from our MIS system. So our marketing team has to do search on keywords, which we're not really collecting. So I brought in faceted search to be able to return results from searches like wine. So we're using faceted search to detect wine out of anybody who has it in their email address. So I have a lot of return results for wine. And now, if I wanted to ask for our customer's permission to use one of their assets, I can simply apply an approval step. And then what ES does is it automatically sends an email to our customer saying, we love your sell sheet. And the email body, and it picks out the customer name from metadata. Let me just log out here for 1 second. And it sends them an auto-generated email asking them for permission to use their asset in our marketing. And I'm sending, along with pre-populated email, job number, customer name, I'm sending a quick link to reference their file in Dialog Engine. Again, saving us from having to embed a PDF file in an email. You know, going back to what Laura said, please say no to email-based approvals. So the customer can get the email from us, they can log in and quickly reference what we're asking permission for, and they can respond with yes or no, and then we can send them our paperwork to get permission for marketing. And I think that's all the time I have. Thank you very much for logging in today.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. That was a great presentation. Now we have the opportunity to open up for questions for both you and Laura. We have a little bit of time now for Q&A. So one of the questions I have for you, Laura, is, and I just need to make myself the presenter so we get you off there. Okay. So Laura, has it been your experience that it's been a lot easier with startup companies from a marketing operations automation standpoint, or getting on board for the process that you've been defining?
I definitely think so. They have they generally have an easier time. I think any of us who've heard about, startups, so it's a struggle, you work all the time and you never know if it's going to make it. But they tend not to have a legacy of the way things have been done. So they don't need to change anything, they just need to build something. And so they build from scratch. That's in some ways it's easier than, just like a house. It's easier often to build a house from scratch than to try to change what you have into what you need. So yes, I think they have an easier time with marketing operations. They have a harder time switching processes from from it's all in one person's head and now it has to be distributed to a team. So every single day is a change for them. Every single thing you do, it will be different the next week if you're growing the way you should be. But yeah,
So
to have it a little easier, I'm at it digital
so
first.
continuing on that topic, what did you find as the real barriers or resistance in, I would say, more well-established or larger organizations in terms of, change management, the process change, etc., for a more established, larger organization?
That's something that fascinates me. When I get into medium-sized companies, larger companies, and realize they're not using some of these systems that are just, of course, in a startup, I'm surprised at how much faster and easier their lives could be. So the resistance often comes from, well, that customer needs to have it a certain way and they won't change. And that's why I see this work from home situation as a tremendous opportunity to get some of those more, I mean, I hate to say stubborn, but people are kind of set and comfortable in their ways to try something new because they have to. And often what they'll find is it's not as hard as they thought. It's the not knowing that's difficult. And I think from what I've heard of stakeholders, I mean, you hear it with DALIM. You get stakeholders from outside. All they have to do is click on a link, and in they come, and they're approving things online. It's shockingly easy, and it's not in their emails. So, yeah, I think it's showing them and using this opportunity of everyone has to change everything. So, how about this one? This works well. Here's a system that works.
So, I would sort of guess that generally speaking, when you get involved, whether it's a startup organization or a more well-established larger organization, there's already some degree of recognition within the management team that things need to change. And, it's one thing to, go through the steps and look at the process, but I suspect the challenge is how do you get these, I would say, old timers or stubborn employees to get on board with either a new process or adopting new technology? Do companies rely on your expertise or knowledge or training to get those employees on board, or is that a collaboration with the management team and yourself?
So there's usually in change management, there's the very first step is deciding whether or not it's urgent, because change isn't that easy if there's no reason to do it, right? As soon as it's urgent, then you have the motivation and the energy and the interest in changing. And now urgent looks different to different people. It could be urgent to the head of the company, to the shareholders, and not necessarily urgent to the people who have to do all the change. So I think I work in that space in between to help translate why the urgency matters for everyone. And that's something, sometimes it comes from a midpoint in the company where they realize they can't get to their goals because something's off in the alignment of the business. So it's usually one aspect of the change needs to happen. And I work with strategic differentiation. So that's often we're changing the way we present our company's value to the market. And then moving in that space, there is then a whole area of activity that needs to align behind this effort, this go-to-market effort to bring a new product or service to a different market. And that's where then you have the discussions of, okay, so what's really holding us back? And it's often just, I don't want to do it. Or here's the other one. It's often, I don't have the capacity to do it because I still have to do all of these other things to serve our legacy business. And that's one of the frustrating things for mid-sized companies. How do you decide this is what we're going to leave behind so that we can focus on what needs to take us forward? Startup doesn't have that. They don't have the legacy to worry about. And they also don't have to be profitable, right? So it's really unfair. And that's who's out there in the market against you.
So to switch to Jim, Jim's more in I would say the position of being the implementer of the technology that's going to support a decision, a management decision or a process, a new process. So Jim, what were the key drivers for the business to reevaluate what technology they were using and finally make the decision to go with DALIM ES?
That's a great question. The answer is we were getting a little bit, the project was losing momentum initially. And we spent a lot of time looking at other systems. And we couldn't essentially decide on the systems that we were looking at before. And we went with DALIM because we were able to make the use case that it's really a system. Now, it can live in a lot of different organizations, as Laura has presented. But it's really, in my mind, it does really, really well as a graphic arts specific pre-media operations platform. And that's what we needed. Our use cases weren't necessarily marketing operations. They weren't creative services. They were very heavily on pre-press and commercial print. And ES provides tools and features that are really great for that. I'll give you an example. The solution I showed, I had to do a bulk asset ingestion when I first launched it. And I literally dropped 25,000 assets all at one time, 8 terabytes worth of data, and I just let it process. And it crunched all of that data without a single error. And we're still using it out of the box. So I guess the short answer is graphic arts and pre-media specific features and architecture.
All right. So we have a question from the audience here. So how are you dealing with security on customer assets and as part of that approval process for that client? The security today seems to be a big concern, particularly when you expose an internal system to external clients or stakeholders.
That's a great question. So that little demonstration I showed, the approval process happens internally. Our internal marketing department is responsible for either selecting, approving, or rejecting, not approving assets that we want to use in marketing. And then the only customer-facing piece is that email. And we're sending that soft proof just as a reference to them. There's no approval needed. We're just sending it an email link. And it's
So in that
particular
example, you're just sending a notification, but the approval process happens internally?
Yeah.
Do you have clients that are logging into the system directly, that uploading assets, or is that handled by internal staff?
We do have a couple outside clients that are uploading directly. And we use the white labeling and the permissions features in ES to only show them areas of the system they need to see. We're also doing some access management through groups and through custom defined work groups. So users only see the assets they have to interact with. They don't see assets they have nothing to do with.
Okay. Now, you did show some metrics there in terms of the number of assets you had for a particular campaign or a product. Is that something that you measure internally? In terms of the performance of assets, some that are used or not used, how often they're used, or anything like that? Do you have any management reporting requirements for any statistics coming out of the system that you're using?
That's a good question. The answer is we've just begun to derive some of those metrics from our assets. Mostly, historically, that's been information like that has been done from our MIS system. And we're just starting to use metadata and assets to just kind of loosely get a picture of who's ordering what products and when and how often. So the answer is yes, we've just begun.
Okay. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up. We're out of time. So thank you, everybody, for attending today's webinar. Thank you, Laura and Jim, for your excellent presentations. And just a reminder, folks, that we have another webinar session planned for next Tuesday. Please go ahead and register. And that's it for today. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.